All right. So, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Nice to see all of you popping in. Hopefully, you're enjoying a little nicer weather today. It's been quite a few storms out here. All right. Looks like one person's having a little bit of difficulty connecting to the audio. Let me send her a quick message. All right. So today we are going to take a look at the Collaboration Center. So, what is the Collaboration Center? Where do you find it? And that's usually the first question. Well, Colleen, you usually tell me that the agent toolbox is under resources, and I don't see it under there. And you're absolutely right. I'm going to show you where you can find it today. But it's really so easy that it's not even a tool you have to click on. It's really just setting up a search and marrying it the contact that you want to send it to. So let me kind of tell you what the Collaboration Center is. Then I'm going to take you on a quick tour of what your clients are going to see, and then I'm going to show you exactly how to set it up. So I'm going to kind of teach the class backwards, if you will. I'm going to show you what you need to know, what it looks like, what your clients are going to see, how they can interact with you, and then I'm going to go ahead and show you exactly how to set it up. Okay. So if that sounds good, then just follow along. I'm going to actually just pull open my screen here real quick. If I could just have one person throw in the questions box that you can see and hear me okay, that would be wonderful. There's nothing worse than getting 10 minutes into your demonstration and realizing nobody could see or hear you. That's always the worst. So if anybody can just pop into that questions box. And where you find that, by the way, if you're new to GoToWebinar, if you go into the GoToWebinar panel, if you open that up, you'll see a questions box in there. Anytime today, if you have any questions, just throw them in that box. It'll pop up on my screen, and then I can go ahead and address that question. All right. So, oh, great. Thank you. Thanks so much, Evelyn. Thank you, Anna. I appreciate it. All right, so let's get started. So the Collaboration Center, what does it look like? How does it work? What really does it do? It's really a way to not have to go in and search every day for your clients. We want your clients to think you're searching every day for them, right? But we really don't want to have to go in, set up a search every day, run the search to figure out what new properties met their criteria so that you can send it out. The goal is to really automate that process. And it's as simple as I mentioned as filling out your search criteria, hitting the save as, and then marrying it to the contact record that you want to get these notifications. But there's some really cool things that you can do in the Collaboration Center. So I'm going to give you some examples because as an agent myself of the last 24 years, I can tell you when you just tell me what it doesn't make as much sense as if you give me an example of why I might actually need that. So one scenario that this is a real life true story, I swear. Had a wonderful closing with this woman, one of those people who's a client but just becomes your friend, through the process, and you just you're going to remain friends. Really nice lady who said, hey, my sister is starting to look for a home, and I just gave her your contact information. I thought, oh, this lady's such a doll. The sister's probably the exact same way, right? No, unfortunately not. Polar opposites. So the second conversation went something like this. Colleen, if you send me one more yellow-sided home, I'm actually going to fire you as my agent. Well, first of all, I don't think she ever mentioned she didn't like yellow siding. And by the way, there is no button in the MLS that says remove all yellow-sided houses, right? So there is something you can set up in your Collab Center called Agent Preview. And what this literally does is it sends it to you, the agent. You can decide, oh, is this a good house that she should see? Or this is something I don't want her to see because it has yellow siding. So the agent preview allows it to come to you as the agent automatically right away. And then you can either allow it with one click to go to her, or you can say, that's not the right one, and we can disallow it. So that way they're only getting those specific properties you've looked at. Other things that you can do in the Collaboration Center that I found really helpful. A good friend of mine listed a property, Dawn Waldrop at Real Estate One, and she was telling me about the property. And I had these first-time home buyers who had told me no less than 50 times, I only want to see houses in St. Clair Shores. I'm only going to live in St. Clair Shores. Don't show me anything outside of St. Clair Shores. So when I set up their automated search, I had obviously included St. Clair Shores. Well, she listed this property that when she was telling me about it over lunch, I knew right away this was the house for them. The problem is it was one street out of St. Clair Shores, right? So it didn't come up in their automated search, but the more she described this property, the more I knew that this was the one for them. So sure enough, I did an agent recommended, which basically pops it up in their collab center. They loved it. We went and wrote the offer right in the kitchen and we closed it up. So sometimes we as the agents, we know better what they're going to buy than they even do, especially in this market where we have such a low amount of inventory. So working in the collab center, it gives you still that flexibility. You can put them on that automated pace, but it still gives you that flexibility to show them things that maybe aren't in their specific search criteria. It also gives them the ability to search. So I know nowadays buyers often say, well, it's fine, I use Zillow, or it's fine, I use Redfin, or it's fine, I use Realtor.com. The only problem with that is, as we know as the agent, many times those properties that are being shown on those IDX sites are outdated. And what happens is an agent claims the listing, it still looks active. The client goes on Zillow, they see it active, and they think, Helene, why didn't you send me this property? And of course, you look it up and it closed 30 days ago, but it hasn't been updated on that site. So I have gotten in the habit of telling people when I'm setting up their collab center that I'm going to actually set them up in the MLS, because that's really what the collab center is. It is the back end of the MLS, but it makes sure that that information is always current. And what I mean by that is they're not going to see properties that really have already closed and are showing up active, because you're actually setting up with access right into the MLS. So within 30 seconds of someone marking it pending, they're going to see it pending. And so it keeps it more accurate. The reason I have really like turning people onto this is I'm going to show you some of the easy shortcuts for the agents. Once you've got your clients in here, I'm going to show you ways that you can click a button and drop everything into a showing time cart, have everything scheduled, even communicate with your clients on the showing information, what time, where you're going to start, driving directions, all of that. So we're going to take a look at that next. So if you have any questions, as I mentioned, throw them in the question box. And with that, let's get started. I'll turn off my fuzzy hair and we'll get right into the collab center. So where do you find the collab center? So as I mentioned previously, that every tool I normally say is under resources. But as you can see, there is no collab center tool. And it's because it really is as simple as just setting up a search. But once you've married that search to the actual contact, that's where you're going to start seeing all the information for Collab Center. So I'm going to go to the contacts area and I'm going to do view or manage my contacts. This is where I can see, it's kind of like my dashboard of everyone I've set up. I can see who I added. So I can see that when I added them right over here in this right-hand column. I can see when they last logged in. I can also see when they received their last notification, their last new property went out to them. I can see what they don't like by simply clicking on this number. This is a live link, so it'll take me into the 2 that were rejected. Or most probably, what I really want to see is what they favorited. So I can go into their favorites with one click and see all of the properties that maybe they wish to take a look at. If I want to see it just as the client seeing it, I can simply click on this view and it takes me right into their collaboration center. So actually that's what we're going to do today. We're actually going to go in and of course you can sort them. You can, quickly filter or find people by when you added them or, when you set them up. So I'm going to use this site that I set up this morning and I'm going to say I want to see Colleen's Collab Center. I'm going to click on view. And that's going to take me into the site just as my client is seeing it. If my client is interested in something, they can simply click the favorite button, and that immediately sends me an email as the agent letting me know that they have a new favorite property. They can, of course, ask questions, flag things as possible. They can reject a property. They can even make custom folders. So maybe they have a vacant land search. and a home search. They can even create different folders that they can deposit these in. Instead of creating two different searches, you can create one search, and they can put the vacant land that they want to go up and take a look at or drive by, as well as they can create a folder for homes that they want to view. When they're ready to see the details of a property, all they're going to do is select View Detail, and it's going to open up that user-friendly interface that we see so much, right? They can see all the interior pictures right from here. I also like that the seller's disclosure and lead-based paint documents come over. They can actually see the seller's disclosure right from here. If they want to check out the neighborhood, they can also click on the street view and simply walk the streets of that neighborhood right from each property. So it makes it so much easier. So I'll jump back to our photos section. So what generally happens at this point is they can go through, they can see the virtual tour, they can see all of the MLS information. It does give them the room measurements, it gives them the property history, it even gives them a mortgage payment calculator so they can crunch the numbers. Maybe they're trying to keep their payment under $2,000 a month, something like that. They can actually go in and run those numbers. It tells them a little bit about the community. And as I jump back up here, I want to show you a couple other things. If they have a question, they can actually type that here, and it will be sent to you as the agent who sets them up so that you can answer that question for them. The other thing I like is generally what happens is if I got this as a favorite, so let's say they favorited this listing, I now receive it as the agent. But of course, what happens next? Now I have to call Mr. Schmagagi and say, hey, Mr. Schmagagi, I see that you want to see the home at 123 Main Street. Are you available tomorrow at 6 o'clock? He says, let me check with Mrs. Schmagagi. By the time they get back to you, the house is pending, right? It's kind of frustrating. So instead of doing it that way, here's a better option. If they favorited, I tell my clients, if you want to see something, favorite it, and then that's going to alert me right away so I can schedule those showings. But there's also places you can see on here that is going to allow them to actually add in the time that they would like to see it. So the time and date. The cool thing about that is I don't have to pick up the phone and verify that time. Now, obviously, if that time doesn't work for me, then I'm going to call them and suggest a new time. It doesn't really schedule a showing for them. What it does is it just relays the time that they're available so you can see if that's going to work for you. So for me, I love that option because it saves me from making those phone calls. Here's the time they're going to be available. Now I can go ahead and start scheduling those showings. So for me, that's a little bit easier option. Once they've put in a time here and they've favorited the property, again, it's going to send you an email as the agent so you can go ahead and get that scheduled. So I think it's a pretty user-friendly interface. I think that consumers really like the fact that they can go in, they can navigate, they can see the interior photos and the room sizes and all of that in one spot. And again, this will show all of our data sharing partners. So any listing that you can see in the MLS, you're going to be able to see here as well. All right. Looks like we have go into pick a particular one here. Let me select a particular one. We'll keep going and I'll go from there. Up here at the top, if I want to, so I am now in as the consumer. I'm actually the person that I've set up in the Collab Center. And up here at this top hamburger stack here, they can also create their own searches. So now you have set up the default search for them. Okay, so you've set it up, it's gone out to them, they now can see these homes, but they can also go in and create their own searches. They can even modify the search that you've set up. Now, you can turn that on or off. So if they're running you all over Michigan and you don't want them to have those features, you can turn that off. However, most clients, if they can search on Zillow, they can search on Realtor.com, they can search in all of those places. So I generally will leave that on. But I do like that if they change their criteria, it alerts me. So let's say that they increase their price due to the low amount of inventory. Well, of course, I want to know that because I want to change my, searching and my criteria so that it reflects that. So keep in mind, they can do their own searches. You can see what they're searching. They can change their search criteria that you originally set up for them. But again, if that's something you don't want, there is an option to turn that off. They can actually create custom folders, as I mentioned, because sometimes you have clients who maybe they're looking for vacant land up north, and they're not sure if they want to build or they want to buy something and fix it up down here. So they can actually create those custom folders too. All right, so hopefully that's giving you. I think the biggest thing about this is it's just an easy way that they can search. It's going to show them things that are coming soon, things that are active. You can allow it to show them pending as well. So it's just you kind of are in the driver's seat, right? You actually control that. And again, when they're ready to go into each property, they're just clicking view detail, and then that is going to take them into that specific property. All right, so we want to get them in the habit of obviously doing those favorites because that's going to alert you to the properties that they want to see. Now, what's the advantage for you as the agent once they do that? Well, first, you're going to get that immediate notification, but here's where it gets really good. So let's say Colleen just went in and these 7 properties here, she's favorited. So I just grabbed a couple off the top and I just favorited them. When I'm ready to go ahead and schedule those showings, I don't want to have to schedule them one by one. I want to take all 7 that they want to see, and I want to schedule them with a showing time card. So I'm simply going to click that number 7 to start the process. That's going to load all 7 of those properties. Now, clearly I can see one of those is actually a coming soon. So I know that's not available for showings yet. So I'm just going to remove that one particular one. I have a little OCD, so when I do that, it kind of makes me crazy. I like to only see the ones that I'm working with. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that checked. Now, how do you make this easy for yourself? Well, of course, I didn't have to go have them email me these 6 properties. I didn't have to go write them down, the ones that they wanted to see, right? I can see that right from the Collab Center. Now, what I want to do is I simply want to use the easy button. And that, by the way, looks like a little plug, if you will. It's the actions button right here. Once I have the properties that they favorited, I'm going to hit that plug and I'm going to say, send all of those to a showing time cart. So I'm going to say add to showing time cart or create a new showing time cart. And when do you want to show those? So I'm going to say we're going to look at those tomorrow. And you can even put your buyer's name in. So that way you can track all of the properties you show to that buyer, and it will even keep on average how many properties you show to a buyer. So a lot of cool analytics behind the scenes in showing time too. So I'm going to say, okay, now I want to show these properties to my buyer. If I had one that was a go and show, these are all appointment, but if I had one that was a go and show, which means as soon as I request the appointment, I'm going to get the lockbox, it would actually state that under the appointment type. If I see that these are kind of driving me all over, this is not really a good order to drive it. Because you can see it's just dropping them in from the MLS in the order that we picked. Well, I wouldn't want to do that because I don't want to drive from one end of town to the other and then back. So I'm going to click on that smart route. And now that's going to put them in the logical driving order for me. Maybe I want to flip that around. Maybe I want to, let's go back up to the top here to show you. Maybe I want to make this the second property. I can actually drag and drop those properties into a different order if I want to. Or I can even sort them from last to first and update it, or obviously you can manually remove it, or you could even remove that particular property. But here's why I like this so much. If there is a blackout time, or if they, let's say, don't allow overlapping showings, and it's going to show you that right here. Like I can see that until noon, I can't get into this particular property. So it kind of gives me all in one where I can see exactly when I want to start scheduling these. So I'm going to say that we want to maybe start, You can see the new reminders, by the way, they're reminding you that you must have a buyer representation agreement in place. I'm sure you've probably heard about that by now. But I'm going to say I want to start my first property at 11 o'clock. And I'm going to select that I am a buyer broker. And I'm going to show that from 11 to 11:15. Here it tells me that it's going to take approximately 11 minutes to get from property A to property B. But if this is a 30-minute drive time, it's really nice to know from here so that I can schedule my showings accordingly. So here, if I'm done at 11:15, I can say, all right, I'm going to make this next one for 11:30 to 11:45, we're going to say. And I have to pick my agency. There we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and be able, now I can see that that's going to put me in good shape for the one that didn't allow me to get in before noon. So I do like this because this will also show you when you were picking your time, if there is a central lock lockbox. It will say here, do you have access to central lock? If it does have a central lock lockbox on it, but it allows me to do this in a quick and easy fashion. So now I can see, yep, this is going to work. I'm sorry, I know the reminder for right now is a little annoying, but we're trying to remind everybody that that is the new MLS rules. Do you see where it says, do you have access to a central lock? So I know that I am going to need access, and this is the central lock for this property. And so I'm going to say yes and save. So now you can see once I'm ready to send all of these, I can hit send request. And now it's going to be confirmed. I do like that it will show you if it is a go and show, if you're running out last minute to show a property, sometimes that's really helpful so you can get those other appointments confirmed in that time. But let's say that we're going to use Tom. Let's say Tom Youngblood is showing his clients around. And they just called and they said, hey, Tom, great news. We found one more house we want to see. And Tom's already got all of his properties set up. He can actually just click add another listing, and he can put that MLS number in and add it to his showing time cart. Or maybe Tom is doing some relocation and he wants to simply put the restaurant in the showing order. He can actually click add another stop, put the address of the restaurant in, and now that will be one of the options here. Now, why you do that is because once these are confirmed, you can click send turn-by-turn directions, and you can send that right to your buyer. That's going to allow your buyer to see which house you're starting at, where they're going next, and those turn-by-turn directions will keep them from asking, okay, which house are we starting at? What's going to be the second house? What's going to be the third house? It'll allow them to simply have those turn-by-turn directions right on their phone. All right, so hopefully that's starting to make sense. Hopefully you find that a lot easier. So once I have all of my appointment times in here, I'm going to hit send my requests. Those are obviously then going to be confirmed. I'm going to start getting those confirmations right through showing time. So I think it's a lot easier than trying to do these one by one, trying to get out a map, trying to figure out how long is it going to take me to get from here to here. Using the showing time carts sort of eliminates that whole process. But really why this was so easy is because I was able to really do all of this right from my contacts, right? So right from where we were, I clicked on that 7 and I started that whole process. Remember how I said you can also approve listings? So if Chris here is my buyer who doesn't want the yellow siding, I can set it up so I get them first. And then I can say, which ones do I want to approve? I can actually go in and I can see, I'll go back and do that again, which ones that I want them to see or not. And that keeps you from having to go in, and you could approve them all, but I kind of like to go in manually and see each one. But remember, we got there right from contacts. So I'm view and manage contact. This is then going to allow me to go in and see each one of their sites. So each client site is here, and anything that they favorited or rejected, anything they flagged as possible. So I have it set up in my settings that I only want to see things that they favorite. I don't really care about what they reject, right? I mean, if they reject it, I'm not interested. But for me, I want to make sure that anything they favorite, I immediately get those properties scheduled since there's no inventory and things are selling so fast. And this is an easy way to do that, to get notified right away. Okay, so I kind of showed you the site. I went in, showed you if you want to view their site, you're just clicking that view button. This happens to be a real client who I'm actually showing properties to. So again, the ones that he favorited, it immediately sent them to me, and now I can go ahead and schedule them just by clicking on his favorites. All right, so again, when I'm ready to schedule those in showing time, the big takeaway here is you're clicking on the number under favorites. And I'm picking the houses I want to see. So if I want all of them, clicking on that actions or plugin, if you will, and sending them right to that showing time card. So it really does make it easy. All right, so how do you set up the Collab Center? Well, you're going to actually start setting up your Collab Center right under preferences. So I know resources is where our tools are, but preferences is really where you're setting up what do you want to be part of your Collab Center. You want to add your, if you haven't added your photo, you don't want them to get, that big circle with no picture in it. You want to make sure that it's set up just as you want. Maybe you want your cell phone to be the number that's displayed at the top. So really what you're going to do is you're going to go into preferences. Right over here where it says Collab Center Preferences Wizard, this is where you're doing your prep. And what I tell people is just go through this really quick, make sure it's got all the things that you want to be displayed. Like I want my cell phone number to be displayed there. So I'm just walking through the wizard. I want my email address, obviously, to be displayed there. If I have social media links that I want to be displayed, I can add all of these things directly under my wizard. What do you want them to see when they get the welcome? Do you want them to see information about you? On your Collab Center welcome, you can have, some basic information, maybe a photo, maybe you've got a video link that you want to talk about your services that you offer buyers. You can actually set this up so the About Me page shows them everything about why they should be working with you. Your value proposition, we call it these days, right? This is where you can add those social media links. So if I want them to be able to link out directly to my Facebook business page, I can do that. You can add helpful links like greatschools.org, where they can actually see school information. So it's just really, what do you want to be displayed? Your office information, we already have filled in for you. But this is the big one. On step 6 of your wizard, this is what do you want the notifications for? So for me, I don't want to get notified every time they get a new listing because, not that there's that many these days, but I just don't, that's not going to be, I get enough email already. I don't want to flood my inbox. So I really just want to be notified if they favorite a listing. If you want to be notified if they flag it as a possible. So you actually get to set your preferences right here. You can also set, now these are your defaults, doesn't mean you can't change it, but you can also set your client's preferences here. And again, these can be adjusted on a per agent basis. This is just what your defaults for your Collab Center site will be. Okay, this is a big one, so I want to bring this one up. For my client, I specifically do just single family residential because I work full-time, obviously at the MLS. I really don't sell any vacant land or anything like that. But I do like to include, of course, actives. It would be the most important for our buyers. However, I also like to include pending and sold. And I'm going to tell you why. Well, first of all, they can find that on many sites already, right? But the reason I include pending and sold is if for some reason, let's say Tom Youngblood sets up the search and his clients get it right away. And 15 minutes later, seems like that's about how quick it is these days, that property goes pending. When that client looks at that email, it's going to basically disappear if I don't allow them to see pending. So what I mean by that is I like them to be able to see active, sold, and pending. Now, really all that's coming to them is going to be active. But if that agent marked it pending right away, or sometimes if it's a cash sale, by the time they look at it, it may have been closed. I don't want them to think the system's broken because, wait, I just got an email yesterday and now I don't see it. I want them still to be able to see those properties. Of course, I'm only sending them actives in my search. But if it changes status in between the time they get the email and the time they click on it to view it, I want to make sure they can still see it. I don't want them to think, yeah, it's broken. That email said that there was a property and there's no property here. So that's why I suggest leaving active, pending, at least active and pending. Sold, generally, that doesn't happen very often, but active and pending is important because otherwise they could get an email and click on it and no property will show up if you haven't allowed them to see pending. Okay, so this is really just setting up your preferences of how you want your collab center to work. I am not a fan of the Zestimates or those easy values, so I do not include any of those on my collab center site. So once you walk through your preferences, again, you're going to go to Preferences. Under System, you'll find Collab Center Preferences Wizard. All you're going to do is click on that. That will walk you through just to make sure you've got your site set up with everything you want to include. All right. When you're ready to view all the information or see their site, all you're going to do is go to Contacts. That's again where you're going to see, are they getting those notifications? Like I was concerned, did Robert get in okay? Was he able to view them? So I can see, yep, I added him on the 12th. He went in 2 days ago and he got his last notification yesterday. So he's actively looking for a home, actually for his daughter. And so again, if I'm ready to start scheduling, I can go right into here. Undecided means that they haven't favorited or rejected them. And it will only show them new properties from the last time they logged in. So if they went in and they went through 4 or 5 of them, they'll still be there, but it's only going to show them the new ones right at the top. So they're not going through those same properties again and again. All right, so hopefully that's making sense. When you're ready to view their site, again, you're just going to click on that view button, and then that's going to show you everything that they're seeing on their end. Oh, there's that yellow-sided house. See, we were just talking about that. Okay, one of the questions was, where do you see sellers' disclosures? Really good question, too. I kind of blew by that, so let me show you. Right up here at the top, so let's see who asked this question. Robert. Okay, so Robert, right up here at the top, you're going to see photos and property map, the property info, history, and that includes the associated documents. Or you can just click on documents, it'll take you right there. So if I want to see the disclosures that were added, I'm going to simply click on that. And I can actually view those now right from there. So I can view them as the agent if I go into Paragon, but my clients can view them right through the Collab Center. Okay, so if they have a question about something, this is where they could look at this and they could actually ask you that question right in the Collab Center. Or most of my clients probably would call me if it says, yeah, there's a ton of water in the basement, they'd probably call me about that. But right up here at the top was a very good question. Thanks, Robert, for including that. So if they're looking for, excuse me, for property disclosures, you're going to find that right under documents. And basically you could scroll down and do the same thing, or if you're jumping to that particular area, you're just going to click on documents and that document will pop right up for you. So a really good question. Okay, so we went through setting up your settings in the Collab Center, right under our preferences here. We went through what the Collab Center looks like, but how do you actually turn it on? How do you actually create it? So let's go there next. So the hardest part of the Collab Center is simply setting up your search with all the criteria. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to say, I want to search for, let's say, a residential or single family home. By the way, there's a lot more you can do under search here. You can view your saved property searches. You could view how much inventory you've sold, how many sales you've had. You can even go back. I think we have it back up to 15 years. So you can pull your inventory that you've sold for a particular year. You can search by the auto hot sheet or the hot sheet. And everybody always asks me this question, so I'll throw it in there. What's the difference between a hot sheet and an auto hot sheet? Well, a hot sheet is basically where you can see things that are new on the market. You can put in custom dates. You can see things that have had price changes. You can also use it if you're calling expireds, makes it really easy. So the next question is, okay, Colleen, then what's an auto hot sheet? Well, an auto hot sheet is going to open everything from the last time you logged in. So I logged into the hot sheet, obviously 320. So it's now going to only show me when I go into my auto hot sheet things from the last time that I logged in. So if you're the reason we do that is if you're really good about running, let's say, expireds because you're calling for new listings, and let's say you do it every 3 or 4 days, if I log in and create that list of potential clients, I don't want to have to keep figuring out where did I leave off on the list. So what it does is if you open it on the 4th day, it's going to show you everything that would be new that you didn't already view. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. But for today, we're just going to set up our buyer in the traditional manner. So we're going to do a single family home, and we're just going to put in our buyer criteria. If you're kind of new to Paragon, remember, if you don't know what goes in a specific field, you can always just click the magnifying glass and it's going to show you what it's actually asking for. So I'm going to say that this person isn't looking for a condo or a farm, but specifically a single family home. Yours may look a little bit different. I've added some custom fields in. I recently was just teaching in Detroit and they were explaining it's really hard to find things for them because the city is so large. If you just search by city, they were not really finding what they were looking for. So we added some custom things in for them, like searching by zip code or searching by just typing in 10 or 12 addresses in one field under the full addresses field. So there's ways that you can go in to customize and add additional fields to help with your search. But today we're going to keep it kind of basic. I'm going to say that we're not looking for rentals. We just want to find things that are for sale. And I'm going to say we are looking in, let's say we're looking in Washington Township. We'll go out by me. Of course, you could type in multiple. Let's say you're working in Washington and Shelby. You could type in multiple. You could even put a whole county in there. And of course, really what I want to show is just this. Now, there are also ABOs in Active. So I was talking to someone earlier today and they said, but I don't like to show the ABOs. Well, you can always deselect that because ABOs, if you don't know, mean accepting backup offers, which means there's a pending offer already on the property. So some people don't like to show those. So keep in mind, you can select exactly what you're looking for. And I'm going to say that this particular client is looking for 400. I never get in this price range, unfortunately, but let's say they're looking for 400,000 to 900,000. And maybe they're looking for a ranch style home. You could go to structure style and tweak it. Now I only want to see ranch style homes. Got to have at least 3 bedrooms. Maybe that has to have a finished basement and a basement. Now this is where it gets interesting. So yes, I can select basement and yes, I can select garage. But what if this client said, Colleen, I only want to see finished basements? Now what do you do, right? Well, that's really where these features come into play. Must have, must not have, or must have at least one of these. So under the features, and this is where a lot of people will say, well, Colleen, I'm just looking for homes that the seller would consider like a land contract, or I'm just looking for things with a finished basement. But if I use the Collab Center, it's sending them everything. That's because you're missing this one step. So let's use Tom again. And let's say Tom's client said, you know what? We must have an attached garage. Okay, so I can say only send things must have in the features area, and I'm only sending my clients things that have an attached garage. What if your clients have said to you, we don't want to mess with a pool, or we don't want a house on a septic field? I just had this happen. I was selling a home in Lenox recently, and it was a husband and wife. They were going through a really bad divorce, and You can't make this stuff up in real estate, I swear. The husband had explained that the septic, by the way, it's in Macomb County, so it's a pass and fail well and septic. It has to pass before the property can be conveyed unless there's an escrow, things like that. Anyway, the husband had said, it's a new septic field, you'll have no problem. Well, unfortunately, it was not new. It was actually 25 years old, and we probably still wouldn't have had a problem, except that he decided to put an above ground pool on top of the septic field, which is not a good idea. And so it was, unfortunately, it crushed a lot of the framework and it was leaking into the soil. And so the wife found out anyway, it was a divorce. She found out she's going to have to pay half of a raised engineered septic field right before closing in the amount of $17,000, which she was not happy. So when she called me and she said, Colleen, when I look for a house, I don't ever want to see a house with a septic field. I don't want to have to deal with a septic field. Don't show me anything with a septic field. So if I wanted to make sure she was only seeing things that did not have a septic field, that's when I'm going to go to the must not have. And I'm just going to type in the word septic. Anything that has a septic, which is a required field, by the way, is not going to go to her. So must have means it must have this in order to go to your clients. Must not means if it's selected, it's not going to go. Or must have one or more. And here's another really good example. So I had a client that had a boat, and he didn't care if he was on Lake St. Clair or if he was just on the canal or on the river to get to Lake St. Clair. He just wanted to make sure that he had his boat at his house. That was really what he was looking for. So what we did is we did must have at least one of these. And I went to the water features and I selected all of the options. So let me kind of show you that. So under the must have, and by the way, if you want to make this even easier, go to the right where that magnifying glass is. That will open up all the categories. So remember how we were talking about the attached garage or finished basement? Find the basement category. And I could say must have a finished basement or must have a walkout basement if that's important to them. So you can actually do it by category as well. Garage, if you only want an attached garage and they're very particular about that, this is where you're going to put that in. Land contract, that's another really good example. Land contract is under financial terms. So if you don't want to send your buyer everything, he is just looking for things that he knows he can get on a land contract, and I want to make sure the seller's included that in the terms, I can pick land contract from financial terms. So it's a way of being even more specific. Water features, as I mentioned, that's another good one. So you didn't care if he was, if he had lake frontage or river access, or if he just was, could tie up at the dock or he was on the canal, but it had to have one of those selected in order to go over to him. So the idea is this is where you can really customize it. So that they're getting exactly what they've mentioned to you. They don't want to keep calling you saying, hey, I told you 4 times that I only want things that are where I can have my boat, and they're getting everything under the sun, right? Or they only want finished basements, but you're sending them all basements. That's where it gets a little bit tricky. So that's where you're going to tie it in with those features. Okay. All right, so at this point, we've got 17, I can see here. I've got his criterion. Of course, you put in things like bedrooms, bathrooms, whatever criteria they're looking for. But now I want to go in and I now want to set up this search so that it is turned on in the Collab Center. So where it says Save Search, I want to do a Save Search As, because I now want to turn on the Collab Center for this client. So we are going to say this is Tom Youngblood search. Name your search, whatever you want it to be. But the real piece is that we're going to marry the contact record of who we want to get these results. So if you already have them in Paragon, of course, you can click on contacts, you can find them, assign them so that these are married together. But we're going to say this is a brand new client. So I'm going to click Add New Contact. And I'm going to say, thanks for being my example today, Tom. And I'm going to put in Tom's email. And I don't really know what it is, so we're just going to make up one. Okay. Now, Sometimes I get questions when I help out in tech support about this next step. If you have a client and you already have their email address in there, it will not let you add that client again. And there's a really good reason. Remember, you're basically creating a site for these people, right? And you don't want to create three different sites. So they got three different, sites to look at. You really only want to have one client with that email address. Now they can have 10 searches in there. You can set up 10 vacant land search, a residential search. You could have 5 residential searches if you wanted to. It really doesn't matter. But you don't want that one person to have all these different sites because it all should be together in one easy site so they can see everything that they need. So that's why it doesn't allow you to add, like I had a lady, she was testing it on herself. So she set herself up and that was great the first time. She went to do it again and it said, hey, I got this big error message. And it's because she had already set up herself. So that email address was taken. And they do that again, just so that you don't have multiple sites and people are like, well, wait, there were some properties here. Now they're not here. You don't want them going to 3 different sites. You want one site with 3 different searches inside, which you totally can do. I'm going to show you that next. But it just, if you do get an error message, that's what it generally means, is that email address you've already used. Okay. All right. So once we've got Tom's email, you could put their phone number in here. You can put their address in, but really I'm just going to put in the email address and the name. So I'm marrying my search with my contact, right? So I got my search name. I want it to go now to Tom when a new property hits the market. The last thing I have to do is save and notify. That's going to basically turn the collaboration center where I now can send him the welcome. And I want every new property from there forward to automatically be sent to him. But here's where there's some good options. Let's say Tom is working with an investor and the investor's like looking over multiple counties. He's just looking for some good deals, right? And he's getting too many of these notifications. He's constantly getting bombarded with notifications. This is where you can actually set a recurring time. Maybe he only wants them Monday morning at 9 a.m. So once a week on Monday at 9. You can actually set how frequently Tom wants his clients to get these. Now, for us, really, quite honestly, at this point where there's no inventory, probably immediate is the best. But maybe you want to set yourself up so you get all your notifications Monday morning at 9 a.m. of everything that went out to your clients. You can do that too. So I'm going to say, and I personally don't like to be CC'd myself. Some people do. I just feel like I get enough email. I don't want every single email that goes out. But if you wanted every single email, you could BCC yourself and you're going to get everything that they're getting it when they get it. The send welcome message, it does have a pre-populated message, but you can change that. So if you wanted to go ahead and, say, hey, thanks for your time the other day, you want to put a message in about how this is the MLS, the back end of the MLS, so it's going to be more accurate than Zillow or other places, you could do that too. But lastly, I'm just going to hit send. And now that email is going to welcome them in to their new site. It's also does an overlay, if you're familiar with apps, where it shows them this is where your favorite things. It kind of gives them a quick 10-second tour so that when they go in, they know exactly what the Collab Center is. All right, so now we've turned on their Collab Center site. But let's say it's a husband and wife that want to share, or maybe 2 partners that want to share the same account, and they want to get those notifications. They want to be able to leave notes for each other. They want to talk about the properties amongst themselves. You can always go to where it says contact information here. And you could add a secondary, either a spouse or a partner, or maybe they're business partners. You can actually type in the contact information and add that person to the notifications. You can even make them a primary as well. You can, within Collab Center, also create groups. My son, Jake, goes to private Catholic school here in Richmond, and I kind of like to keep track of how many contacts I pull in, from doing different events like the water bottles and the races and sponsoring things, to kind of keep track of how many buyers and sellers come my way from that. So you can actually even create custom groups, kind of a mini CRM, if you will. So when I'm getting ready to when I'm getting ready to go back and do mail outs or my calendars for the year, I can actually do that right from here and I can select different groups to do different mailers. Up here at the top, if you never want to delete a contact. So let's say that they purchased, it closed, and they're like, oh my gosh, stop sending me all of those houses. Well, you don't want to delete the contact. You simply want to make them inactive so that they don't get them any longer. And this is a really easy way to keep your contacts. And again, you can even group them, but you can turn off those notifications and make them inactive so they're not getting any more. This is where you can also do that agent preview. So if I want this person to, the yellow siding story, going back to that, if this person has expressed, hey, if you send me one more yellow sided homes, I'm going to fire you and get another agent. Well, I can go back in and I can do an agent preview, which again allows me to look at them first before they go to the client. Okay. And then if I don't want them to go, I can say that too. So I'm going to say I'm going to make them an agent preview. From here, if they have expressed to you, so we're going to say that Tom is looking for vacant land and a fixer-upper. Well, I can go in, I can adjust his original search, or I could add another search. So if I want to go back in and I want to edit his search, I can do that. If he didn't get his welcome, I can resend that, but I can also add an additional search for that vacant land. So I just click Add Search. I could add an existing search that I've already saved, or I could add a brand new search from scratch. So again, if they are looking for more than one thing, or again, you can have as many areas as you want, but if they're looking for vacant land and they're looking for a fixer-upper, you can actually create a separate search, but it's all still in one collaboration center. If they are also selling with you, so Tom's out of Grosse Pointe, knows a lot of people, let's say he's selling their house and they're buying through him, well, then you can actually associate their property that they're selling with you. So they can see things like new listings that went on the market in their area. If one of their neighbors just maybe reduced their price, all of that, you can actually associate a property you have listed so that they can not only see potential homes to buy, but they can see what's going on in the market of their listing as well. As I mentioned, if you let's say that Tom's got this person all set up, and he's sending them property. They're getting all these properties, and they call Tom and they say, you know what, Tom, we got a house about a week ago with black shutters. I don't see it in here anymore, but I think we would like to take a look at that home. Every message that goes out from the welcome to every single listing is included in the message history. This allows you to go back. If you knew it was for last week, you could adjust the dates and just see what was sent last week, but it allows you to see every single listing that was sent to them. So I like that there is this history. Also had an agent who said, my client's really upset with me. She said she never got this new listing that went on the market. And I don't know why. Well, actually, we went into the message history and we see that it had been sent, in fact, and for whatever reason, she did not look at that particular listing, but it had been sent to her. And it was still in her, when she went back into the Collab Center, it was still there in her properties. So anyway, long story short, it does give you that history for just those types of scenarios. All right, so as you can see, it's pretty easy to navigate. The big takeaways here are that once you've set them up, you're going to find all their information right under contacts. So I'm going to get rid of some of this. So when I want to see my clients, when I want to see what my clients are looking at, I'm simply going to go to Contacts, View or Manage My Contacts. And then that, of course, is going to show me everything that my clients have favorited, when they've last logged in, and all the things that we've mentioned previously. If there's new activity, you'll also see these little pluses, which are highlighted in green right here. This is going to show you that there's new activity on their account. But it's really nice that you can actually go in and see it just as they can, in case, especially if they have questions. All right, let me jump over to our questions for just a moment. Okay, so I think I got the one about disclosure. So Bob, let me know if that made sense. Is natural gas a feature option? You know what? Let's go in and let's take a look. There are 7,000 features. So I can truly say I would not know that off the top of my head, but let's go in and take a look. So let's go into features. I can't actually, I'm kind of astounded how many different features there are. So natural, so I am thinking, so it would be right under here. Wall heat, radiant, sound steam, hot water, forced heat, electric heat, heat fuel. So as you can see, natural gas is an option. So that was a good question. I'm glad you asked it because I would have not known that. So there is heat fuel type and heating system. Where I found natural gas was you could do must have, must not have, but really, really good question. That one I could not have told you. So thank you. I appreciate the questions. It's a really good one. Yes, there is a pole barn feature. Let's say that you had a client who said, I either need a pole barn or a workshop, must have one of those. If you just start typing in the word pole barn, you can add that in. And yes, there is a pole barn. There's also stables. I was just talking to someone in my own office. I've never been fortunate enough to sell a house with stables, but if you were looking for horse stables, you could do horse stables as well. Those are all under features. Really good examples today. How do you delete a search if you have more than one? Okay, good questions. So if you have more than one that you wanted to remove, and I'm assuming you mean in the Collab Center, because you can always delete your searches. If you mean just your saved searches, let's say you saved a bunch of searches and you want to delete them. If you go to your saved searches, you could just say, I want to delete these two. Highlight the two you want to delete, and there's a little delete key right at the top. And then that allows you to delete those searches. So you could delete it individually here. That's probably the easiest, I think. If you wanted to go into their Collab Center and pull up, let me find somebody who's not a real client here. I did that the other day. I was showing somebody something. I deleted a real client. I felt terrible. Okay, so if you wanted to go into their search, so I am going to say, I want to go back and edit their search. You can do that as well. And obviously you could recreate the search too, just depending on what. I find it easiest, quite honestly, to just delete it from your saved searches. But you could go in and you can add a search, you can delete a search also right from your buyer activity. So and again, I don't have a lot of in here to show you, but if this is my search, I can go in and I can then change that search criteria. I could edit it by simply clicking in your search name. So I'm going to say I'm going to go into my search. I can go in, I can add an additional search. You can remove a search. If I had my searches here, I could show you that here. You can also, and I'm kind of glad you asked that, because you can also do an agent recommended search. And what is that? Well, remember, that's where if it didn't meet the exact criteria, you could still go in and add a listing that's an agent recommended. So right up here at the top where it says add listing, if I knew I set them up for that St. Clair Shores home that they've been looking for, but I now wanted to go in and show them that house that my friend listed one street out of St. Clair Shores, I can put in that MLS number that you find on your listings, hit OK, and it's going to pop that up as an agent recommended. So right over here where it says agent recommended, you can go in and click add listing, just put in that MLS number, hit OK, and the next time they log in, it says your agent recommends this, and that house will be in that agent recommended area. So really good questions today. Okay. Recommend using features that are required in the system. So good point. So Richard brought up a very good point. It's kind of like garbage in, garbage out, right? Most features that are are going to be important are going to be the ones that are required, like septic, like heat, like things like that. Yes, you could put in fireplace if they wanted, and you wanted to be more specific. But remember, things are selling so fast that not all agents are putting all information in, and it's unfortunate. Um, and I wish we would get back to putting more information in and doing a better job of selling the properties. But Richard brings up a good point. If you're searching on something like fireplace and the agent never bothered to fill that in on the listing, you might actually lose good, valuable listings by the agent just saying, hey, just fill in what's required. Fireplace is not required. So therefore, the agent may not have filled it in. So it is really good. The best features are the ones that they absolutely have to have. Finished basement, for instance, attached garage. If they're saying, I don't want anything but this, it's a great idea to include those. Those are required. And that way it's only going to them if it has that. Things like fireplaces, unfortunately, I see a lot of agents, the home has a beautiful fireplace. And I even saw a waterfront home the other day that the agent didn't mark it waterfront. I mean, could you imagine having a $500,000 listing on the water and not marking it waterfront? I just was, wow, I was kind of just blown away. But so yeah, it's kind of garbage in, garbage out. But requireds do have to be there. So those are always great features. And that's a really good point. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Okay. Is it possible to enter a radius? Absolutely. Good question. So I'm thinking your example, Amy, and correct me if I'm wrong. Is your example like they want to live 5 miles from where they work? Because if it is, that's absolutely possible. And let me show you how you would do that. So I'm going to just pull up our last search that we did just to kind of make more sense. Okay. So by the way, you can always pull up your last searches. It saves, I think it's 20 searches. So you can click last search. It'll always take you to the last one you did if you should lose power or you get timed out or something like that. So we've got some basic criteria. And Amy had a really good question. Is it possible, let's say that your client says, I don't want to live more than 5 miles away from my mom and dad, or I don't want to live more than 5 miles from where I work. You can always go into that map field and let me show you. So let's say I don't want to live more than 5 miles away from where I work. I'm going to go to this address field up here at the top. And by the way, this is using Google Maps. So the best thing to do is to put in just the route, street address, comma, the city. And I'm going to show you why. If you put in too much information or you type in boulevard and they've spelled it out or it doesn't match, it'll be kind of hit and miss for you. So what I recommend, this happens to be Wessel Drive, leave off the drives, leave off the ways, the places, the circles, the route, street name, comma, the city. So now I'm going to resurface my map here. Now, what I really like about this is let's use that 3-mile example. And I think that's what you were trying to say, Amy. I'm going to go to search radius 3 miles. And I've just created that 3-mile radius of where they would actually want to live. So you can do it that way. And by the way, let's say you didn't get any search results here, and I want to make it just outside of that. I can actually go, and let me show you how I did that. I clicked on the circle here. I created my search radius, but now I want to go to edit. Clicking on the middle of this blue bar here. Maybe I want to open it up just a little bit more to see if there's any other listings in there. So you can actually adjust your radius. If you realize you didn't get anything, you can always go back to criteria right here. And I can see, okay, am I missing something? And I think I'd put waterfront on this one. So clearly waterfront is not going to be on in Washington Township here. But the idea is you can actually expand that circle. So I'm going to say that I am looking for a single family residential home. I am looking for all active. But would help if my radius was in that particular city. So let me put that city in here. Like, I don't have anything to show you. I pull up Sterling Heights where that is actually located. Now I can jump back to my map. I like that you can go backward and forward. I can see those properties. As you can see, there's 3 properties very close together right here. If you wanted to see them individually, you can always just zoom in and it will break those out to those little flags. If the flags are close to each other, that's kind of why it does these bundles. You can either zoom in or you can just jump from house to house over here. So yes, absolutely, you can zero in on an exact area you want. You know what else is really interesting when you're setting up your buyer? I'm glad you asked me that question. If you are setting up your buyer and maybe he really likes all of this area, but he said to Amy, really don't want to live, let's say, south of 59, or I don't want to live, right over here. My mother-in-law lives right over here. You can also exclude an area. So let me show you. So I've got my 3 mile radius here, but let's say that the mother-in-law lives really close to down here. We want to draw a shape. So I'm just going to use the polygon tool here. And we don't want to live too close to our mother-in-law, right? And you're probably thinking, lady with the fuzzy hair, you just drew a shape on a shape, nothing happened. Well, one more step. You're going to go to edit, but this time instead of including that area, you're going to exclude it. Now you see how that listing disappeared? Also, if you're setting up your buyer save search, great news. It actually will not send them anything that falls in that area. So if they like everything in this particular city, but there's a little corner of that city they don't want to live, maybe it's close to the railroad tracks or whatever, you can actually exclude that too. Okay, so some kind of good examples. You can have up to 10 different shapes on your map, by the way. So if you are drawing, let's say they like this area over by Bloomfield Hills here, you can draw that. Again, you can exclude, but maybe they also like this area north over here. And obviously you could zoom in and make it even more exact. You're just literally drawing your shapes that you want to include. Another thing that I thought was very interesting, at least for my area, I had a buyer who did not want to pay flood insurance. He was very adamant about, Colleen, I do not want to have flood insurance. Is this area going to require me to have flood insurance? Now, while I do tell them this is not a flood plain or an elevation cert, you can, and I do say this is not a survey, this is not an elevation cert, but if you kind of want a visual area of maybe some places you might want to stay away from, you can click on this layer map right here. And you can do things like include a floodplain. And as I zoom in, you can see it's now adding that floodplain. So again, this would be a place I might want to ask, hey, do you have to have flood insurance in this particular area or on this particular listing? So a lot of things that you can add right under these layers. Had another good example. And thank you for asking that question because it sort of jogged my memory to another good example. Had a friend of mine, Flo Apke, she was working with a buyer who was a volunteer firefighter, and it was in a really rural area. And basically, he had to live within the city limits, and he couldn't live one street outside the city. But it was a very rural area. But it was very hard as she started to do her search for her to see exactly where would that area start and stop. So she zoomed in and she said, how am I supposed to know where the city line stops and starts here? Which I thought was a really good question. So if you go over to your layers again, you could add things like parcel lines so that as you zoom in, you can see how big the parcels are. You can even click on a parcel. Even if it's not listed, it will show it to you, which I thought was very cool. But in this case, her concern was if he's one street outside of the city, that's not going to work. But how do I know exactly where the city lines start and stop? Which I thought was really a good question. So you can apply the municipality lines. You can even apply the city name so you can see exactly on your search, if you wanted to draw it out, I can see that the city line starts and stops at Hayes between Clinton Township and Sterling Heights. Of course, you could even make this more detailed if you wanted to see the exacts, and you could do like an aerial view and really be able to zoom in to exactly where you would want your line to start and stop for that search. So I thought that was kind of a couple really good examples that at least I could think of that would be, why you would want to add those extra levels or those municipality lines, which I think are kind of cool. All right, so that is really all that I have for you today. Unless there are more questions, let me just double check here in my questions box. Okay. Is it possible to enter a radius? We covered that one. Hopefully, Amy, hopefully I answered all of your questions. And I think that's the last one that I see. If I missed any, now's a great time to type them in. I did record this class today. It takes me about 24 hours to get them updated, but let me show you where you can find this recording. So let's say you're not setting a buyer up right now. You don't have a buyer. And a month from now, you get a new buyer and you're like, what that lady with all that fuzzy hair say? Where do I start? You just need a refresher. Well, keep in mind, you can go to resources, and under resources, you're going to find our education center. I just recently became the director of education here, on top of my vendor MLS duties. So if I wanted to find this recorded class, I could go under resources, education, and recorded webinars. This will take you to our YouTube channel that we set up, where we have all of the classes that we've taught. So yesterday I taught Authentisign and Transaction Desk. I also just recently taught a class about clauses and Cloud CMA. So all of those are here. Just literally click on the one you want. You can fast forward to the exact part if you needed particular help with something. In addition to that, I would love to see you at some future classes too. You can find those under that same area, resources, education, and our new education corner. This is kind of like an interactive flipping book, if you've ever used one of those. It allows you to flip the pages to find out all of the classes. So let's say you want to take our new class on tools for tackling low inventory that's coming up. You can literally just click on the button. It'll take you just like you did for this one, where you can actually register. Oh, it happens to be over, but you can actually click on that particular upcoming class, and it will allow you to then register for it. If you want to attend our next Cuba Casa class, same thing. Just click. It'll take you to that registration page. And I am updating these today, so all the new classes will be there today and tomorrow. I'm updating it, so I should have all the new classes there by Saturday. All right, and I don't see any other questions, so I'll just take one more look. All right, well, I hope you have a wonderful day. Happy selling. Hope you have a great holiday weekend. And I will look forward to seeing you in our future classes. Have a great day, everyone.